Hey, Willowbrook. My name is Jared. I'm one of the pastors at the Madison Campus. Thanks for joining us again for another deep dive into the scriptures. We've been reading this historical narrative genre of Genesis. It's been so good, hasn't it? Amazing, amazing stories. Right now, we're in what many would call the journey of Jacob. I'm going to give you a thought here as we lead into the scriptures. You've heard this said in church before. Uh, this old rhyming statement: where God guides, God always provides. You've heard that, right? Where God guides, God always provides. It's so true. But what I want you to remember today, as we see God's provision, is that where God guides, He always provides, but it doesn't mean it's without difficulty. That's a true statement. Let's look at how God's going to provide for Jacob as he continues his journey. Verse 29 says, Then Jacob continued on his journey, that's only what it says, and came to the land of the eastern peoples, and there he saw a well in the field. Now, Jacob knows that God's going to provide for him. In fact, one of my favorite verses in Genesis 28:15, Pastor Mark brought out yesterday, God said to Jacob, I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. God promised Jacob be with him. He promised he would guide him on this journey. And so Jacob's continuing that journey. What's he going to see? He's going to see God's provision. He comes to a well. There's some guys there. I'm going to summarize a little bit for you for sake of time. There's some guys there, and he basically says, hey, where are y'all from? They tell him, and he says, oh, do you know Laban? Laban was Jacob's uncle. And they're like, yeah, we know Laban. In fact, look over there. Here comes Laban's daughter, Rachel. Well, here comes some of God's provision. If we skip a bit ahead to verse 9, it says, while he was still talking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. Skipping ahead there, Jacob's going to talk to Rachel. Verse 11, then Jacob kissed Rachel. Now, Jacob's not fast forwarding here in the relationship. This is like a greeting type of kiss. In fact, there's a lot of kissing in our passage today. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and began to weep aloud. Scholars think it's because he's been on such a long, hard journey. He's finally, seeing somebody and connecting with them. He told Rachel that he was a relative of her father and a son of Rebekah. So she ran and told her father. They're excited that they're connected, that their families are connected. As soon as Laban heard the news, verse 13, about Jacob, his sister's son, he hurried to meet him and embraced him and kissed him. There's more kissing, and brought him to his home. So now Jacob has found Laban. He has gone to Laban's home. He's going to work. He's going to help out in this agrarian society. He's going to help Jacob in the fields. It says, after Jacob had stayed with him for a whole month, Laban said to him, just because you're a relative of mine, should you work for me for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be. So Jacob's helping out around the house. Laban says, man, I don't care if you're family. I'm going to pay you for what you're doing. How much do you want to get paid? That's always a great question to be asked, isn't it? Well, Jacob says, well, hey, you've got these two daughters. I'd really like Rachel. I'd like Rachel. Jacob was in love with Rachel. Verse 18 says, and said, I'll work for you for 7 years in return for your younger daughter, Rachel. Laban said, it's better that I give her to you than to some other man. Stay here with me. So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. Oh, that's a beautiful romantic statement. He worked 7 years, but it only seemed like a few days because of how much he loved her. What's God doing here? God is living out his promise to Jacob to provide for him. He is providing Rachel to Jacob. But here's the thing. It's not going to be without difficulty. You're going to have to listen in tomorrow or read ahead to see, because Jacob, who's kind of known as a deceiver, well, he's going to reap a little bit of what he has sowed. He is going to be deceived. Where God guides, God always provides. But it's not always without some difficulty. I'm sure you've experienced that in your life too. I know I have. Bobi Ann and I, we've been married 21 years. God has guided us every step of the way, but we've had our share of difficulties. We've had some some major pitfalls that we've gone through. We've had some times where we didn't even know what we're going to do next because life was so hard. I bet you've had the same thing. But throughout that, God has been with you. God has been faithful to you, and you can thank him for that. I hope you have a great day, Willowbrook. See you tomorrow for our next Daily Deep Dive.